This video contains spoilers for ARCANE Season 1 and 2. There is a certain probability you did not like Vander's flashback about him, young Silco, and the mother of Vi and Jinx. Many ARCANE viewers did not like it, and I am among them, but I defend that scene on one point. It is not a retcon. After showing the proof of this claim, I will also add my interpretation, which might make the scene even worse, but oh well, it's already quite bad, so what do you have to lose? You'll actually gain one more point of critique against it. So let's discuss it. Starting with the retcon accusations, let's make clear for everybody what is a retcon and why this scene seems to be one. A retcon is basically a late change of mind of the authors. It manifests itself as some elements in new episodes of a series contradicting elements in an old episode. In particular, when these contradictions happen, the new elements become the correct ones, while the old ones are ignored, corrected, or anyway considered a mistake. Fans usually don't like this because it means modifying some already known element or even ignoring them despite them still existing. The flashback of the younger parents, biological and adoptive, of Jinx and Vi in episode 5 of season 2 seems to be a retcon because the information provided until then, especially during season 1, seemed to suggest that Vander and Silco did not know Jinx and Vi's parents. This assumption gave a particularly selfless and poetic meaning to Vander's adoption of Jinx and Vi, seen as spontaneously prompted by the compassion for two orphans. And a similar thing can be said for later when Silco adopts Jinx. This is what many watchers have been thinking, until they saw the flashback in which Vander and Silco not only cherish the mother, and therefore probably her children too, but also they implicitly promise to help taking care of and protecting her children, changing the meaning of their adoptions. However, I believe this is not a retcon, not a new piece of information contradicting another one given previously. I think it's a case of one information being very vague, allowing for many interpretation, and then a clarification happening and disproving many of those interpretations. This is made more problematic by the clarification being less intuitive than some very common interpretations. By lack of additional information in season 1, it was easy to assume that Vander did not know previously the children he was adopting. In reality, it was never clearly communicated that he did not know them, nor that he did. So this led to the confusion. Why is this only a confusion? Because by rewatching the scene of the first meeting between Vander and the children, we can understand that it is not, in fact, their first meeting. This is something I did not notice myself, but I learned it from Georgia Doe, or Dow, I don't know now, Georgia Doe's video. I will put the link in the description. Anyway, when Vi meets Vander for the first time, Vander indicates to her where her parents lie by looking in their direction. This means that Vander recognized Vi and Powder, knew already who their parents were, and was able to identify their bodies. So yes, he already knew them. There is another clue, which is slightly more subjective, but to me it seems very indicative not only against the retcon allegations, but also as an argument that the flashback scene was planned since the very first episode of the season 1. It's Little Vi's necklace. We see it on Vander's wrist as a bracelet in the flashback. Again, Vander's bracelet is a detail I only noticed thanks to the video by Georgia Dow. However, I had already noticed Vi's necklace, and I wondered about it. It is a very peculiar necklace, and very evident. These two children come from a poor family, so they don't have much, and what they have on them, I assume, is important. Even more when it's so evident and unusual like Vi's necklace. Before the start of season 2, I was already asking myself why they gave Vi such a necklace and what it could mean, but I could not find an answer. Now I do. It was a prompt placed in advance and intentionally to create a link later with Vander in the flashback. Of course, this is only a supposition from my part, but in my opinion, the only reason Vi had that necklace is that it was preparing this link. So the idea to create this link with the flashback already existed at the start of season 1, probably. However, there is another point to clear out. Some people argue that the flashback must be a retcon, because if it's not, Vander and Silco knew Powder and Vi since the beginning, and therefore it does not make sense that Silco tries to kill Vi, knowing she is his friend's daughter. I think that this reasoning makes sense, but also I see a reason why Silco would endanger his friend's daughter. She is old enough to have absorbed Vander's principles and be very loyal and affectionate to him. Silco hates Vander, so probably also any kid of his team who acts following his principles and plans. He sees them as an extension of Vander and hates them equally. Silco tries to kill Vander, so no wonder he tries to kill his closest allies too. Powder is an exception to this. She is still young enough to be re-educated as Silco's ally. She has not yet fully developed an independent personality through which she could make the active choice of following Vander. She is not yet an enemy of Silco. So in my opinion, this is why Silco tries to kill one of his friend's daughter, the oldest, but not the younger other one. Now for the part of additional theories. Like the video by Georgia Doe again points out, Vander and Felicia in the flashback seem particularly close. But that video leaves it at vague hints. Here I want to consider several details to try understanding Felicia and Vander's relationship better. As said, they seem very close. Felicia seems closer to Vander than to Silco. They exchange lots of direct looks in the eyes. Sometimes the camera shots even cut Silco out. He's always sidelined. She sits in front of Vander and talks mostly looking at him, as if he was her focus, while Silco was just a person she trusted to hear their conversations, but not her main focus. This is how she tells them about her pregnancy. She says it seemingly addressed to Vander mainly, but she doesn't mind Silco being there and learning that too. She tells her friends before telling her partner, the supposed father of the future child. She says she is working up the courage to tell him, as if he could react negatively to this news. But we don't know exactly the reason why. She lets Vander choose the name of her future child. And as said, Vander in the flashback wears a bracelet that later becomes Vi's necklace. Therefore, he must have gifted it to her. And it must be important if she is wearing it in a situation that does not seem celebratory at all, suggesting that she probably wears it daily and not only in special days. Moreover, remember that we see this flashback through Vander's mind, who is recalling all of this while Warwick and Vi are fighting. If Vander remembers this precise memory thanks to Vi, and it allows him to regain consciousness and control over Warwick, it means that it's a very important memory for him. So it seems unusual for somebody who is simply a friend, even if he is a very close and important one, to have so many ties with a person's just announced pregnancy. I am convinced that friendship can be as important and intense as romance, but in this case, even I see the links of Vander with Vi as excessive for a simple friend of a pregnant woman. Long story short, I think that Vander is Vi's biological father. However, I don't imply that Felicia was cheating on her partner. We don't know exactly the type of relationship she had with Vander and its timeline compared to her relationship with her current partner. Also, we don't know if she is in an exclusive monogamist couple with her partner. And in general, we don't know if in Zone there are marriages like in the traditional West of our world, or if it is common and accepted to have multiple partners, or maybe polycules are even institutionalized and officialized with a right similar to our monogamist marriage. We also don't know how childcare duties are assigned or shared among adults, how families are defined. Any option can be possible. What we can learn from Vander and Felicia's conversation in the flashback is that Felicia will probably raise the child with her new partner, while Vander and Silco won't have an active role in it, but they will support her indirectly by making Zone a livable place. If you disagree and think that Vi can't possibly be Vander's biological child, please tell me in the comments if you found specific explanations for any of the points I raised about Vander being closely linked to Vi and Felicia. I am curious to know other opinions. I discussed some more the role of Vander in Vi's education in my video dedicated to her and her arc through the series. Please like, subscribe for more Arcane essays, and see you in the next video. Bye!